Hey, welcome to another coach video tip. My name's Dan Foster, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer and an Executive Coach here at Building Champions. And today I'm super excited to be sitting down with our VP of Content and an Executive Coach, Todd Mosetter. Todd, thanks for joining me today, my friend.
Pleasure to be here, Dan. Excited for the conversation.
Awesome. Well, in this session, we're going to be diving into a key concept from the book, The 7 Perspectives of Effective Leaders, by our founder and CEO, Daniel Harkavy. And as leaders, our effectiveness boils down to two critical factors: the decisions that we make and the influence we have. These two areas shape not only the outcomes we drive, but also the legacy that we have with people. So today, Todd, I'm eager to learn from you, especially how you're helping leaders to strengthen these two essential elements of their leadership. So you ready to jump in?
Let's do this.
All right. So Todd, let's start by just digging into the importance of decision making and influence. So in your work with leaders, why do you believe these two factors are the primary drivers of leadership effectiveness?
Yeah, it's a great question and a great place to start, Dan. I think one of our mutant superpowers as modern humans is we tend to make things really complicated.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of what is simple is understood and what's understood gets done.
Hmm.
So if someone's looking to be a more effective leader, and I think that word is key. In today's day and age, we don't have time to do countless things. We have
Right.
limited resource, limited attention. So as leaders, we want to be effective. Are the things I'm doing getting the right return? Because I don't have time to do things that don't. And if you look up anywhere, you could find 10 different books that give you 30 different leadership competencies and 60 different behaviors. And they may all be research backed and accurate and great. But
Yeah.
in the moment of day to day, now we're asking a leader to go, what was that framework? What do I do here? If it's complicated, it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
Effectiveness really comes down to, am I making sound decisions?
Hmm.
So much of business today, the speed at which we operate, the complexity we are in, we need to ensure that we're making good decisions. But without the second piece, influence, as John Maxwell said, leadership is influence.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, to be a leader, you have to have both. So what we love about the framework is you can take all 34 of those competencies. And my guess is they fit into one of those two buckets. You could
That's
take
right.
16 more. They fit into one of those two buckets.
Yeah.
So what's great about it as a leader, if I'm looking to get the biggest bang for my buck, am I doing everything I can to help me and my team make good decisions?
Yeah.
And am I maximizing my opportunity to influence others?
Love it. Love it, man. Okay. So let's talk about what's at risk, because some leaders might be sitting there going, oh, all right, I get it, but what's at stake here? What have you seen? If a leader doesn't get one of these things right, let's say they're okay with decisions, but not great, but they have a ton of influence, or they've got a ton of influence, or excuse me, they make wonderful decisions, but they don't have very good influence with people. So what's at stake if you get one or both of these wrong as a leader on the team and eventually the whole organization?
Well, I would argue, based on the research, the data, and our experience in coaching leaders, that you're going to have a really hard time being effective.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean you still can't get results, but I think the effort that you have to put in to get those results is going to exponentially go up.
Hmm.
And I would argue that your ability to maintain that over a longer period of time going to be hugely impacted. So let's look at both sides of the coin for a minute. I think we've all known leaders that make phenomenal decisions. I mean, they are great at looking at the data, understanding risk, looking at the environment. Their decisions sound.
Yeah.
However, if the influence doesn't go with it, so the leader came off as the smartest person in the room, my idea or the highway, people
Mhm.
didn't feel like they were heard, it may be the right decision. But if people don't actually follow you and execute on it, well, then it wasn't a good decision.
Right.
And on the flip side, you can have a leader that they create an awesome culture. People love working with them. I have met teams that would literally run through walls for their leaders because they love them so much. But if you don't perform, you're not going to have a team for long.
Yeah.
And worse yet, you're going to lose credibility, because then
Mhm.
your team is going to start making workarounds, because they're going to be like,
Yes.
hey, I love working with Dan, but really can't trust him to make good decisions. So we're going to have to create this system or go behind his back, or,
Yep.
and long term, that is going to sink you. What great leaders know is these two things aren't in competition. If you have great influence, which means you're creating a culture where people feel heard,
Mhm.
ideas are brought up and they're challenged, well, decisions go up. And,
Yeah.
and if you make good decisions and people understand not just the decision, but how it was made, why it was made, that it's communicated clearly, influence goes up. So it's
Yeah.
not like a seesaw that you're trying to
Right.
balance as a leader. It's like, no, how do I get really good at both of them?
Love it. Love it. And that's the perfect transition to this next question, which is give us some practical advice and tips about how leaders can improve their decision making. They can grow their influence. What can they be doing, Todd? What are you sharing with your clients, and what have you learned just as you've been in this industry of leadership development now for over 15 years?
Yeah, it's a great question, Dan. I think the first thing that I always encourage leaders to look at is for your organization, define what makes a good decision because
Mhm.
it's going to look slightly different from every organization. Is it how
Yeah,
fast we're making the decision? Is it how
good.
many people are speaking into the decision? Is it how quick? I mean, think through for you as a leader, how do I know we're making good decisions? Because if you don't have a definition of
Hmm.
what a good decision is for your team, you could be chasing someone else's.
Yeah,
The
good.
second thing I always encourage leaders to do, and most leaders I work with have never done this before, a decision making audit. So, as a leader, actually go through what are the decisions that I'm making as a leader.
Hmm.
Now, there are two opportunities. A, should I even be making these decisions? Because so many times leaders end up being the bottleneck for their teams. And if you want to make better decisions as a team, maybe you need to push those decisions down into your organization as your team. We
Okay.
often talk about the decision making ladder. The
Mhm.
higher you get in an organization, the less decisions you should be making. But the flip side of that is they carry a lot more weight. So you
Yes.
need to make sure that they get them right. So,
Yes.
opportunity number one, am I holding on to the right decisions or are there opportunities to push them down into my team? And then the ones I'm holding on to, because they're the right ones, what can I do to improve the way we make that decision? Because
Yes.
there's probably some barriers that get in your way. All organizations have a culture. What we
Hmm.
don't realize is many of them have a culture around decisions, like a subculture. Everyone knows how your team makes decisions. Some teams, we make them too fast and we have to change them all the time.
Right.
Okay, well, maybe we want to slow down a bit and get some more information and get some more data. On the flip side, I've coached leaders who their culture is we take forever to make a decision. So, what would it look like to
Yes.
fire that up a bit? So, as a
Yep.
leader, I think if you can start with making a decision making index,
Yes.
which ones am I making and are they the ones I should make? And the ones I'm holding on to, are they right?
Yeah.
Now,
Good.
here's the other big tip for leaders. If you want to really turbo supercharge your decision making, you have to separate the process from the outcome. It's a
Mm.
term we refer to as fielding outcomes. And
Yep.
what happens is too often in life, if something turns out well, it must have been a great decision. So we don't actually stop and evaluate the process we used, the
Yes.
information we gathered. And if a decision turns out wrong, oh, golly, that must have been a bad decision because it didn't work. Well, so much of the time it's environmental, it didn't get executed right. So separate those two things.
That's so
What
good.
was the process we used to make a decision? And
Yeah.
then what was the outcome?
Yes.
Tying them together holds so many leaders back.
Yeah, because you could actually end up sabotaging a really good process. It just was the outcome wasn't great, right? And then you end up sabotaging a process and then maybe going and having to recreate a new process, or people get left with no process at all because you threw everything out because of the outcome. I love that, Todd. It's so good.
And how often does something work out, but it ends up being very serendipitous or lucky? So we're like,
Yeah.
oh, let's just keep doing it this way. And it's
Right.
like, no, we were lucky. I
Yes.
don't want to be lucky. I want to be good.
That's
And
great.
that's what great organizations do.
Love it. All right, Todd. So those are great tips on improving your decision making. Let's now talk about influence. What have you got for us?
I think it starts with the decision making. There
Okay.
was a study I found recently that 25% of employees' work week is wasted looking for emails, tracking down information to find out who can make a decision.
Mhm.
So if you want to improve your communicate or decision making and influence,
Yeah.
communicate your decisions. Like once
Yes.
a decision's made, actually communicate. Why was it made? How are we doing it? What are we evaluating? Because then they'll trust your decision making more, and you get a twofer because it's increasing your influence as well. So
Good.
don't just make the decision and then think, well, it's made. We talked about it once. Over and over again, communicate around it. The second big thing, if you really want to leverage influence, you got to take the time to connect with people. It's more important than ever.
Yep.
And I'm not saying everything has to be touchy feely if that's not your nature as a leader, but people today, they want to feel known and seen and heard and valued. So as a leader, if you want to improve your influence, take time to intentionally get to know people and connect with them. We often spend so much time talking about current reality. And I think leaders are good at it, both on the business side and personal. Hey, Dan, what are you working on? What's going on with your life right now? How are your kids? Where are they at? How's Sarah doing? That'll help.
Yep.
If you truly want to connect with someone, you have to expand their horizon and understand more about their story. Who are they? Why did they get to where they are? Who were they before they were part of your team? And then on the flip side, where do they want to go? How do they want to grow? What do they want from their future? If you want to improve your influence as a leader, know your people and then let them know that you are for them, that you're advocating to help not only be the best versions of themselves at work, but in life. And not just helping them win with where they're at today, but helping them win with where they want to be in the future.
I love that.
You get that piece right in influence, everything changes.
Yeah, so good, man. So good. Todd, thank you so much, man. These insights today have been awesome. So, hey, if you're watching and you want to know more about how Todd and our team help leaders elevate their overall leadership effectiveness through their decisions and their influence, head over to buildingchampions.com, check us out, and be sure to connect with Todd on LinkedIn. Todd, thanks again, man. We really appreciate you.
My pleasure.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time.